The UCLA Bruins defeat the Arizona State Sun Devils 62-27 tonight at Sun Devil Stadium. I'm Ina Lazarev with Devil's Digest publisher Hode Rubino. Hode, this was not a highlight reel game for the ASU Sun Devils. They gave up the most amount of points at Sun Devil Stadium ever. But let's start with the offense. I want to know how you would assess Mike Berkovici's first start at Sun Devil Stadium, as well as the offense's performance as a whole.
Well, you look at Michael Berkovici's stat sheet, and you're definitely impressed by the 488 yards passing and 3 touchdowns. But obviously, the 2 interceptions on the flip side of it were really something that hurt ASU quite a bit in the first half. Really, the backbreaker, it goes without saying, is that interception for a touchdown that Mike Berkovici threw with 2 seconds left in the first half. ASU was marching right behind us down the field. They were out of timeouts because they burned a lot of timeouts earlier in the game on defense, and that's another thing you can point to as
it was really a momentum changer.
Definitely a momentum changer. Without timeouts, your play calling in the red zone becomes very, very limited. And instead of going for a field goal that would tie the game at that point, 20-20, Michael Berkovici, again, obviously with the pressure to go ahead and make a play with no timeouts, throws interception for a touchdown that goes 95 yards. At the halftime, UCLA led 27-17, but let's face it, with all that momentum shift, it almost seemed like UCLA was leading by 3-4 touchdowns. And things did not get any better in the second half in terms of the offense. Even though the offense gained over 600 yards tonight, they only had 134 yards rushing. And this is a team that came into this game averaging 300 yards rushing a game. Granted, UCLA does have a strong front seven, but I really felt that Arizona State could still impose their will to some extent with the rushing game. Because that didn't happen, that put more pressure on Mike Berkovici. As the game progressed and ASU was digging itself more and more of a hole, obviously the running game was all but abandoned. And with a backup quarterback, that's maybe asking just a little too much. I mean, it definitely wasn't a great performance from Mike Berkovici by any means, but a lot of other aspects contributed to this loss. And I think not establishing the running game, a lot of drop passes, were some of the other things that really hurt the offense quite a bit, both in the first and the second half.
In ASU's last game against Colorado, the defense gave up 545 yards, but only 24 points. Tonight, the defense gave up 580 yards, but nearly triple that amount of points with 62. What would you say was the biggest difference?
Well, I mean, obviously look at the caliber of opponent. Obviously, UCLA is quite a few levels above a team like Colorado, even though Colorado, I think, is definitely one of the emerging teams in the Pac-12 overall. But even against Colorado, it really was that bend but not break mentality. There was more sure tackling, and the sure tackling was nowhere to be found tonight. You can point to probably a dozen plays tonight when you look at the game film of missed tackles that led to UCLA scores, and not only UCLA scores, UCLA huge scores. UCLA had 2 touchdowns of 80 yards. UCLA had 100 or really 105 kickoff yard return for a touchdown. And again, missed tackles was part of that as well. So I feel that was probably the biggest reason, besides just the caliber of athletes that Arizona State was facing. I think another thing that was definitely disappointing is that coming into this game, we all knew that UCLA's offensive line was very porous. It was one of the worst in the country, both giving up sacks and giving up tackles for loss, and that's regardless if Neuheisel or Brett Hundley was playing over there. Arizona State was able to get some pressure in the first half. I mean, at one point in the first quarter, they actually had 1 sack and 3 tackles for loss overall. But I just felt that after that first quarter, UCLA was able to make the adjustments, and the pass rush of ASU was really non-existent. Hundley had tons of time to go ahead and throw the ball, and that coupled with some really bad tackles from the secondary, also from the outside linebackers, really did Arizona State in. And even UCLA's rushing game, which was pretty good against Texas, but not really good overall, had over 200 yards. And again, I think that's another aspect that probably will surprise you when you look back at the game film and compare that to UCLA's performance in the first 3 games. So yeah, just like offense, a lot of miscues, defense, same thing. But I would say poor tackling probably is over and above the biggest deficiency we saw on defense.
Todd Graham has been preaching all week that one of the major keys to winning this game tonight would be winning the battle on special teams. Obviously, that didn't happen.
Yeah, it really didn't happen. We talked about the 100 or really 105 kickoff return for a touchdown. There were some other big kickoff returns that went for pretty good chunk of yards, and just one or two tackle at the end prevented another score on special teams. And I think also when you look on the flip side, Arizona State, on the one hand, is not able to go ahead and return a kickoff, although they returned one tonight, and that was for the first time in all season. But it just seems like when they kick off the ball on the other side, the other team for some reason always has the opportunities that Arizona State never has to go and return a kickoff. And obviously it was very detrimental at one point. And again, there was a lot of other kickoff returns by UCLA that went for a big chunk of yards. So now that demoralizes the defense that much with the defending the shorter field. And this is a game that a lot of things went wrong. So you hope like at least special teams can somewhat stop the bleeding here or there, but Arizona State wasn't able to do that. And I think another thing that is really become a huge issue is a punt return, or really the lack of punt return for Arizona State. I just feel that Damaris Randall is not making good decisions over there with the punt return. Not filling the ball when he's supposed to. A lot of punts, I think one or two actually were down here in the 10-yard line. And again, on a night when so many things went wrong, the field position was almost like insult to injury in the grand scheme of things, and that really hurts. So don't get me wrong, there's a lot to fix on offense and defense moving forward, but special teams, much like last year at the Rose Bowl, really failed Arizona State. Obviously last year in the grand scheme of things didn't hurt Arizona State, but they had a much better team, I think, on both sides of the ball. This year obviously was a whole different story.
Things aren't getting easier for the Sun Devils anytime soon as they face USC on the road 10 days from today. How do they overcome this?
Huge question. I think that Arizona State is a team that really prides itself on really coming out of adversity and really handling adversity. That obviously didn't happen in tonight's game. And again, maybe it's just like too much of a hole to go ahead and dig themselves out. But I think there has to be a lot of soul searching between now and the USC game 10 days from now. The USC game on the road is not going to be any easier compared to what we saw tonight. And I just think there's a lot to fix. I mean, obviously when you see this game, you almost want to burn the game film, but on the other hand, you really have to take a close look and really take inventory of all the bad things they're doing on offense, defense, special teams, and go ahead and fix it. It's just really time for Arizona State to hit the reset button and not let UCLA beat you more than they did tonight. Not let that UCLA loss become now a 2-3-4 losing streak. Because let's face it, you got USC in 10 days. You got a bye week. After that, you're playing Stanford at home, a team that you absolutely were not able to get over the hump against last year. After Stanford, you're playing at Washington. And I'm telling you, and even the game against Utah on November 1st over here, even if we're looking way ahead, doesn't even look that easy because Utah's playing better. I really think that the whole Pac-12 South, I mean, you're seeing some signs that a lot of teams are really improving. And you kind of wonder if you can say that about Arizona State, because I felt even in the first 3 games leading up to UCLA, Arizona State's performance was not consistent, very, very spotty. And I almost feel that all the things we're able to get away with in the first 3 games against a caliber of opponent like UCLA, they just simply weren't able to. And that's really the story of this game. So, again, it's really going to be more mental, I feel, than physical for Arizona State to improve on. And we'll see, like I said, really tough test at USC 10 days from now.
If Todd Graham were here, he would really tell you to take it one game at a time, right?
Yeah, and really have to take it one game at a time. And like I said, you have to walk that fine line between, okay, how much you're going to dwell about this game. But on the other hand, you really have to, again, take inventory, see all the mistakes that you did on both sides of the ball and on special teams. It's going to be hard to put this behind you, but in a lot of ways, like I said, try not to put this behind you. Try to go ahead and be this a motivating factor. Prove against USC this is not the ASU team that everybody expected to see in 2014. Much easier said than done, obviously. But again, I feel the mental preparation for USC takes on a whole different level right now compared just to the physical, just to the X's and O's preparation Arizona State's going to have.
Putting you on the spot, any quick predictions for the game at USC?
No, not really. I mean, first of all, I have to see how USC is going to fare against Oregon State on Saturday. I don't think that's going to be an easy game for them. It's really hard to say right now how ASU is going to fare. I'd like to go ahead and maybe get some kind of vibe in practice, even though we don't get to see that much, to see how Arizona State responds. It's really hard to say. I mean, this team did come from adversity last year many times, but I just think the personnel, especially on defense, was really almost night and day. I mean, we didn't see a lot of missed tackles from this Arizona State defense. I mean, sure, we saw miscues, but we really just saw a defense that really imploded tonight, plain and simple. And we saw an offense that, you know, had its own share of miscues. Again, you can put it on the backup quarterback and whatnot, but again, this is a lot to clean up on offense, defense, special teams. So really hard to say how they're going to fare at USC. But again, it also kind of depends how the Trojans are going to show up, because you don't know if they're going to be world beaters from here on out. They had a very disappointing and surprising loss themselves against Boston College a couple of weeks ago. So we'll see. The Pac-12 has turned out to be really, really unpredictable. Again, we talked about teams like Utah, Colorado that are really improving from last year. Arizona, even though they're squeaking out wins, I mean, they're still undefeated themselves. So Pac-12 South is not going to be a cakewalk for Arizona State, but there's still a lot of games left. You know, Arizona State is only 3-1 right now. They still got time to improve stuff, but again, they need to go ahead and just, like I said, mentally really better prepare for USC and the road ahead.
All right, Sun Devil fans, since Hode won't give me an answer, I am putting it on you. Give us your predictions for the ASU at USC game 10 days from now. Keep it at DevilsDigest.com. For Hode Rubino, I'm Ina Lazarev.